Universal Peace Federation for giving me a second opportunity in the last 2 weeks to come along here in a bit of town that's not very far from home for me, to come along and talk on something which I think is clearly up there and is going to dominate the headlines in the lead up to the Copenhagen conference of the parties in December. And we're less than 100 days away from that. And I just wanted to kind of highlight one or two things which I think we need to think about, which are probably outside of the box, but that's not a bad place to be sometimes if you want to put ideas in, which hopefully will get some focus and coverage. And the first one, I start really in my kind of capacity as chair of the Environment Committee at the London Assembly. And one of the things one's certainly aware of at the city level is what a critical role cities, whether they're city-states or city regions, can play in reducing our carbon footprints. Let's not forget that something like 75% of CO2 emissions come from cities and towns, and we've reached a point in humanity where actually 50% of humanity now lives in cities and towns. And I think that does suggest that we need to focus more closely on what cities can do. And one of the ideas I want to test the water out on is essentially, whilst the conference of the parties in Copenhagen will be nation states, I do think there's a case to have cities as conference of the parties. One of the things the previous administration at City Hall did and gave a lot of leadership on was the C40, and Nikki was a leading light on that front. And I think there was a lot of good interactions of ideas and whatever, and collaboration. And it's something which I think I feel needs to be formalised in some way. And whilst, yes, the emphasis will be on post-Kyoto in Copenhagen, I think we also need to look at another level, tier of governments, which I think can play a critical role. And I say that because actually, whilst the US didn't ratify Kyoto, a lot of the cities and states did do a lot of good work, and I just point to California and some of the things that came out of there to show you actually, whilst you may not have your country of nationality not doing too much in terms of commitments, there's another level where I think things could be done. Here in London, it's quite interesting. At the last GLA contest, there was a general agreement between the two main candidates about what the target was. It was 60% reduction of CO2 emissions of 1990 levels by 2020. Is that right, Nikki? Okay. 2025. Okay, I knew I got the year wrong. But actually, if there was a disagreement, it's actually how we get there. And I think with the previous administration, with Ken Livingstone and Nikki's leadership, there was a clear action plan on what could be done in key sectors. If I can just point one or two, I mean, one which I think needs to be looked at more particularly in London is the housing. Housing impacts the way we live in our homes. And something like 40% of those CO2 emissions for London emanate from our homes. Now, there could be a lot more done in making our homes a lot more energy efficient, and it could be a very localised, it could tap into a very localised economy, dealing with the solid wall installation. I suspect a building like this is certainly very solid, and we could create new markets in that way, and in that, to that extent, it would be a localised green economy initiative. I think that's where we need to go, and I think there are plenty of ideas like that amongst our cities. If you go to the transport sector, I think there's a lot of things that can be done here in London with the public transport sector and limiting the the emissions coming from all the buses and taxis. Oddly enough, 2 weeks ago, I discovered a fact actually, which black cabbies weren't happy to acknowledge for obvious reasons. But there's 21,000 black cabs in London produce as much pollution as 46,000 private hire vehicles. Now you can imagine, and that's both CO2 emissions and localised pollution like PM10s and NOx. But that just shows, I think, the kind of things that can be done locally, and I think if nation states don't agree, there should be a plan B possibly in Copenhagen, and why not? I think there are many cities that would want to sign up if the political will was there to create space for them to be party to the conference in Copenhagen. The second thing which I wanted to kind of put out for discussion, and it's something which again is outside the box, but I think one of the things about I think humankind since we left Africa is that we've kind of moved around based on one of the ways that we've responded to natural disasters is moving with our feet. Migrating over continents and regions and what have you. I think there's a case to put for climate refugees. We have political, economic refugees. Why not climate refugees, where it's clear to me, in the parts of the world that I know quite well, like Bengal, that people are already doing that. That's the way, actually, the most instinctive way of adapting. And we've been doing it for a lot longer than we like. Now, I know politically that there may be a lot of difficulties trying to swallow something like that. I would suggest that most of the people who are climate refugees are not likely to be boarding planes and going to different continents. It's more localised in particular regions. So, for example, in the Bay of Bengal, it's Bangladeshis going into India, possibly into Burma, and further north as well, which would also go into India. I think actually that's something we should acknowledge and take some responsibilities and realise the reality is that most people will be migrating more locally. That's the second idea I want to throw out. The final one is where I actually think the Copenhagen conference is going to go, and I think the real battle is going to be on the battle they had in Kyoto over the agreement there, where the Americans, with a lot of persistence, pushed tradable permits, and I think got most of the world to sign up to it. But unfortunately, when they went back to the Senate, couldn't get it ratified. And I think something similar is happening with the trade and cap proposals, which Obama wants to put up at Kyoto. And it sounds as though actually he's going to have as much difficulties amongst his Democrat senators as much as Republicans. I do think actually, if you look at what's happening in financial markets and generally, that there is a move away from these kind of market-based solutions, and it'll be interesting to see what proposals we get from East Asia, from the Koreas and the South Koreas and the Japans and the Chinas of the world, where I think there is a lot more state intervention. And I think that will colour a lot of the debates into the main areas of negotiation in Copenhagen, which is to do with innovative finance and technology transfer. I hope that's not too much food for thought, and I think they've all got direct links into a low-carbon economy and certainly rejigging the whole way the world economy operates in the future. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of insights from our audience here this evening for me to take away and possibly use at the London Assembly. Many thanks for listening to me.